Hey everybody, welcome to today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. My name is Nate Carter, and I don't know about you, but I love to eat really good food. And one of the things that excites me about being with Jesus is that he describes heaven as being a big old banquet, big old feast, and I can't wait to get in line for the buffet there. In Matthew chapter 22, Jesus gives us a little preview about what the kingdom of heaven is like, and he talks about this feast as if he compares it to a wedding banquet. Jesus says in verse 2, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited. Now, God the Father is the king, and he's throwing this banquet for his son. His son is Jesus. You know, Jesus is the victor, and so he's throwing this feast in his honor. And guess what? The people of Israel are invited. His chosen people are invited. So the people listening to Jesus as he's sharing this parable would be astounded to hear this next sentence. But they all refuse to come. You don't refuse an invitation to a big feast. I know I don't. And so they would be astounded to hear that someone refused to come to this banquet. Now, in our day, it would be insulting, and that day would be incredibly insulting for someone to refuse to attend a banquet, just be culturally unheard of. Verse 4, so he sent other servants to tell them, the feast has been prepared, the bulls and fatted calf have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet. But the guests he had invited ignored them and went their own way, one to his farm, another to his business. Others seized his messengers and insulted them and killed them. Now, this is pointing not only to some of the people listening to Jesus in that moment, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, but also pointing back to the messengers that he's referring to, the prophets that continually sent the message of the good news to the people, and they were killed for representing God's message to them. The king was furious. Now, we don't like to think about God as getting angry, but God is angry when he's been insulted. Of course he is. One of God's aspects is that he has wrath against sin. And so it's absolutely appropriate and in God's character to be angry when his offer is refused. And he sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. And he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see. So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike, and the banquet hall was filled with guests. Now this is a reminder from the very beginning of time that God promised Abraham and his descendants that he would make his children recipients of the promise, and is that God would be preparing a place that was for all people, or all nations. And in Revelation, we see that come to fruition, that not just the Israelites, but all nations, Jews and Gentiles alike, would be invited, and many will receive the offer and be there at this big feast. Verse 11, now this is where it gets interesting. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. Friend, he asked, how is it that you are here without wedding clothes? But the man made no reply. Now, it was customary in those times for a king, if he was throwing a huge wedding party, to actually send clothes to the invitees so that they would have something to wear that's appropriate. So to have someone say, you know what, I've decided not to wear your clothes, would be insulting to the king. And likewise, the metaphor that Jesus is painting here, we have to wear the clothes of righteousness that God has provided for us through the blood of his son Jesus. We have to be dressed in the clothes of righteousness that Jesus purchased for us and sent to us so that we can attend the wedding feast of the Lamb. Verse 13, then the king said to his aides, bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. And so this is just a little bit of a stark, sober reminder to us that we've been called, but we have to choose to accept the call, and we have to choose to wear the garments of righteousness that have been offered to us. It's worth a gut check to make sure, have we chosen to follow Jesus? Have we chosen to accept the gift of grace that is offered to us through Jesus' death and resurrection on the cross? Many are called, but few are chosen. Well, I'm looking forward to that great feast. We'll see you there someday. But until then, we'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.